Next project is making a replacement piece of furniture to replace this. This is an old piece of shelf, particle board, legs. The legs are falling off. The shelf is moving. The back keeps falling off. So we need a new thing for the living room to replace that. So the cool thing is I got a bunch of free, like a thick stack of large solid pine shelving. The stack was probably from there to here. Basically, one of the local stores was closing their one section. They were getting rid of all this. Just like, okay, yeah, we can't throw that out. So I made this. This is basically sanded down pine shelving. And it has a top. We got sides. We got bottom. Let's see. The doors move. So we got the nice fancy hinges like that. We have pins to get it to push out. Yeah, so this is what we got. You can see the back. But it looks really nice so far. And you can kind of see the pine has really good grain on it because it's, you know, pine boards all glued together as part of the shelving. And you can't really see, but this is put together with dowels. And let's see if I can find the jig. Hold on one second. Okay, so I have a dowel jig. It is specifically, no, can't see that. There we go. It's one of these. Self-centering dowel jig, goes up to 6 inches wide. That comes with this, so it will do 1/4 inch, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, and 1/2 inch, all centered. And then it comes with these pegs. So once you drill the holes in the end, for example, and I don't know that I have any of those. I know I have examples somewhere that I did, but I don't remember where that is. Once you drill that, you take the corresponding plugs, stick it in the hole, and then tap the other piece that goes on top, and then that will mark the centers. So for all these, the verticals have the holes drilled down in, and then I lined up and tapped and put marks on all around the sides. And then I took the boards over to my cross-slide vise, and then over here I made this little piece that holds in the cross-slide vise, and then I can clamp the board down, line up the little mark, move the cross-slide back and forth to get it exact. I was able to set the depth stop on the drill press, drill the holes, move over, repeat, drill all those holes, and then come back over and put the pegs in the appropriate places and tap it down. So the only thing that was a bit, well, there was a number of challenges, but one of the challenges is because these were freestanding shelves, and that's, you know, 4 feet long, there was some, shall we say, gentle bends. And so that means that the boards were not quite straight. So that made it a bit of a challenge to get some of these in there. So I had to hold, in order to get the bottom on, I had to hold things in clamps. So I, for example, on the table here, clamped this in the corner, slid the bottom up next to it, slid the side up next to the bottom so it was touching here, and that let me mark the appropriate size. So that's, I need to do final sanding to get it perfect, but even without that, it works pretty good. But the reason that you can see that there's a gap here, it's because none of this is glued yet. This is all just dry fit. But yeah, so once I got it all lined up, and I worked my way up, and then for the top, I had the sides all clamped in tight, everything all secured, the front pulled out to the proper equidistance from side to side, front and back, tapped all the marks on the top, went over, drilled all the holes, brought it back, put the dowels all in, set it on, went tap, tap, and that slid right down on. That was awesome. So that just means that I did it correctly, because it slid down on without fighting. Now granted, because it's under tension, the top really doesn't lift off more than that, because then it just stops due to the tension because of the warpage. But yeah, with glue and such on there, I think that's going to work great. The one challenge, well, what I used to do these European style hinges was this jig. So I got the fancy bit, which would allow you to do a door with two sides. So it's one of these Rockler Jigget concealed hinge drilling system, which you can see over there, complete with the bit from the drill. And I was able to drill that in. Unfortunately, the instructions were, shall we say, lacking, specifically in the how far, because on the unit you can see here on the box the screws are in the 5mm section. Well, the only pictures in the book was 3mm, and they said check the hinges for proper installation. Well, there was no instructions in the hinges, so I tried 3mm. Well, it was 5mm, so I had to re-drill and then play around. So in order to get, you can see the gap slightly there. Basically, it's an extra. I had to do an extra 2mm this way, but with the 5mm jig. And then because these holes, I had holes, 2mm apart for screws to put in, and that would have blown out. So in the original holes, I put a dab of super glue in, and then tapped a little piece of wood from one of the scraps down in to fill it up, and then I topped it off with a little bit of baking soda to get the glue to harden, because I don't have any of the spray hardener or the instant cure or whatever. But the baking soda works just fine. And then I drilled down in, and I'd already had the holes drilled, so then I screwed down in, and that worked fine. And this covers up the double holes and covers up that. So that's all good. But yeah, I got it all adjusted, and we got a fairly good gap. It's not perfect, but it works. I think it is actually, yeah, it is rubbing right there now, so I do have to fix that, and that'll probably fix the gap. But yeah, it's just little tweaks on the door hinges, and then I need to put stain on it. So yeah, you can see the side. So the stain I'm going to use is, well, first I had the preconditioner, because that's important. And then I'm going to use this stain. That's the aged oak stain from minwax. That worked on, I didn't make a video on it, but the bottom of the desk, to raise a desk in the house, that worked to darken that nicely. So I'll just put two coats of that on there, and then that will be all good. One other thing I realized that I had to make, so I had to take time off to do, was I had to make a quick cross table or cross-cut table for the table saw. There's tons of videos on that online. Definitely watch some of the really good ones there for this. So I'm not doing a video on this, but other than just showing it. This made it possible to cut all those pieces, because some of them were long, to cut those pieces to the exact lengths, because it's easy enough to cut some smaller pieces and whatnot, but in order to cut those to the exact lengths, I needed a cross-slide vise, or cross-slide vise, cross-cut sled. Yeah, so that worked out nice. And again, I love my outfeed table that I made for that. That works great for assembly and everything else. But yeah, that's where we're at so far. That was the project for the last 2 weekends. And then we'll go from there. The grain doesn't quite match up, but you know, it's close. It kind of looks good. It's pretty. The camera, I don't think, does it justice. You can there you can kind of get an idea, but it's actually really pretty. So with the stain, I think that's gonna make it look really nice. And then I got some polyurethane to put on top of the stain once the stain's all on there. But yeah, that should work out really good. Oh, I also got a heat gun to take the varnish off, and that worked awesome too. That was way better than sanding. Sanding like that with yeah, that took an hour to do one panel, and a similar panel took 15 minutes with the heat gun and scraping. So yeah, heat gun is definitely the way to go. Plus it made less dust than the sanding would have. So yep, that's the project. I got 2 wheels on the or 2-inch wheels from Home Depot on the bottom. They're not locking casters. They're just the 2-inch wheels with bearings, but that should be fine. And then the screws just come up in, I think they're number 8s. Number 8s or number 10s, just the 3/4 inch screws for those. Hold it nice. It's only going to be rolling on carpet, so that should work fine. But yeah, 3/8 inch dowels. I used most of this pack. Looks like there were 35 in there, and there's probably 4 left, 5 left somewhere. So maybe a sample once I have running around somewhere else. Yeah, there's one, at least one for the testing. So yeah, so probably 30 pegs. But yeah, that worked out really good. Might do another video once I get the stain done. But like I said, the big takeaway from this, when you're doing these kind of hinges, figure out and do a full test piece of the same thickness in order to get this distance between this part, the round bit, and the edge. Because that, if that's wrong, what that does, see here, this is flush. With that wrong, the edge was over there. And you can adjust a little bit with these hinges, but that much is way too much. So after going from the 3mm to 5mm, that fixed that, and then that worked. Oh, one other thing. This was the sander I was using. It's a Bosch sander, 5-inch, and these sanding pads are really nice. They're Diablo sand net, and I got 80 grit, and so I went 80 to do the coarse stuff, especially after the heat gun, just to take a little bit of varnish off, and then I ran up through 120, 180, and 220, and it makes it really nice and smooth. So yeah, those are really nice. Those work way better. I have found you have to clean them, but they work way better than just the regular sandpaper, at least for what I was doing. So yep, that's it. It looks good so far. So we'll go from there.